Hello, we're back to part 2 of lecture 2, and before we get to the numbers of investment, we have to look at the difference between gross investment, which is what goes into GDP, and net investment, which we'll talk about later. We'll talk about it here now, but we'll also talk about it later in terms of where it goes into the income product accounts. Now, gross investment again is gross. It's spending on all capital, money that's spent on new additions to capital for a business, as well as money spent to replace capital equipment that was worn out, became obsolete, or was broken during the year. So net investment is only spending on the new additions. So net is always when you subtract something. Gross is the total for whatever you're talking about. Net, you always subtract something out. So net investment will be gross investment minus depreciation, the money spent on depreciation. And if you look at the Bureau of Economic Analysis accounts, they have the term depreciation, the technical term is consumption of fixed capital. And so whenever you see depreciation or consumption of fixed capital in this class, they're the same thing. So you can also write net investment as gross investment minus consumption of fixed capital. Now this also could be a negative number. If our consumption of fixed capital, we had more depreciation than we had in terms of gross investment, that means our capital stock was falling. And so if net investment is a negative number, that means we had more depreciation than we had in gross investment. And so the capital stock was falling. If net investment is 0, then that means we had enough investment during the year in gross investment exactly equal to what we lost during the year in depreciation. And then if net investment is greater than 0, that means that we had more gross investment than we lost in depreciation. And so net investment greater than 0 means the capital stock is growing, and it probably means our production possibilities frontier is moving outward. Net investment means our capital stock is falling, which probably means our production possibilities curve is moving inward. Opposite of economic growth, that'll be economic decline. And then net investment equals 0 means we kept steady, so our production possibilities frontier, assuming nothing else changes, will maintain its same position. And these are the numbers for 2019. Fixed investment, $3.6 trillion in these areas right here. Residential, and then we have change in private inventories, positive $66.8 billion. That means that was added to our inventories during the year. And so this represents goods in the stages of production that are not been completed yet. And so that would go into GDP as a positive number. And their total investment was a little over $3.7 trillion. Down here we have investment. Going back to 1980 again, and you can see it's kind of gyrates quite a bit as well. Again, of the main categories in GDP, this might be the most volatile one that changes a lot. Just like with consumer spending on durables, business does not need to invest if things are not going well. And so right here, during the Great Recession, if people are not buying new cars, not buying new homes, not new appliances, business is not selling as much, they don't need to invest. The good news is that after the Great Recession, investment picked up a lot right there, but again, took a sharp dive right there. And so it'd be nice to see, or it'd be interesting to see, I should say, what investment does for the next 2 quarters of this year. Okay, now we have government. Government is a G, and so we have C for consumption, I for investment, G for government, and this is government consumption and gross investment, and it's everything the government spends money on in terms of goods and services. Now the problem with government is that we don't have a market value because government does not sell things per se. They provide police protection, they provide highway construction. We do sell education through like Chaffey College, but the fees student pays don't come close to the actual cost of the education. And so because we don't really have a market system for government, right here, how do we add into GDP? Well, we do it by the value of goods and services are going to be estimated using the spending by governments. So it's pretty much what government spends money on. So at Chaffey College, government has money spent on equipment, on structures, on salary. Whatever Chaffey spends during the year is going to be what goes into GDP from Chaffey College. And then again, investment is what government spends on equipment, structure, software, and so Chaffey does both. Now what it does not include is money spent on what's called transfer payments. Transfer payments. Transfer payments is when money is transferred from the government to an individual or an entity in exchange for no good or service. And so the government hands out money for Social Security benefits. That's a transfer payment. That does not go into GDP. When the government hands money out for, say, low-income assistance, that does not go into GDP. Things like food stamps, Section 8 housing, all those things. When they are finally used to purchase, say, food or something, then that would go into GDP, but the actual transfer itself would not. Money transfer to farmers for subsidies. Right now, the farmers are getting a lot of money from government due to the trade war with China, and they're trying to keep the farmers afloat, even though it's the trade war that's causing the damage. And those who represent transfer payments does not go into GDP. We'll find out that not most, but a big chunk of the federal budget does go into GDP, and that's a little less than half of it, and the other half will go into transfer payments. So the big parts of the federal budget is really money going to Medicare, which is health insurance for seniors, and money going to Social Security benefits. Both of those represents transfer payments. Then we have money spent on defense, non-defense, and the local budgets. And that'd be for education, that'd be for water or flood control systems and so forth. And so it was $3,700 billion. And that was similar to investment. Go back and look at investment. Investment was about the same number as well. And then last section, right here, sorry, this is government. Now government can counteract the recession right here. You can see they did. When everyone else was cutting back, they were spending money. And here, after the recession hit, they would cut back a bit, and now since about 2015, they've been spending money again. The last sector is net exports. X stands for exports, and M stands for imports. And so exports minus imports would be our net exports. Exports represents money, or sorry, not money, but goods being shipped out and the money coming in for them. And imports would be things we buy from abroad. We want to add in exports because those are things we produce but weren't picked up under C or I or G. And so when we buy things here for consumers, business, government, we don't pick up this because they were not sold to us. And so we add it in here. But then we have to worry about some of the things we bought here were actually made abroad, and so we subtract them out here. We could worry about things we buy, whether it's made here or not, and only add in things that were made here under consumption. But that seems very difficult. A lot easier not to worry about what stuff we're buying. Just take it out at the very end and add in all the stuff we sold abroad. So if we have a trade deficit, exports would be less than imports. This number is going to be negative. And a trade surplus, exports greater than imports, that'll be a positive number. And here we have the numbers for 2019. And so here are the exports of goods and services, and here are the imports. And so we imported $3.1 trillion, we exported 2.5, so we had a deficit here of a negative 632, and that would go into GDP as a negative number. But do notice that we are the largest seller of services in the world, and we do have a trade surplus in services right here. We sell a lot of services to the rest of the world. We sell financial services, we sell medical services, we sell educational services. Chaffey College, we sell educational services to other students around the world, and that'll be when international students come here or they can take a class online. And so here were the inputs from 1980 to 2020. And you can see again recessions, it goes down, big hit right there on imports. And usually the same thing happens to exports. When times are good, both things are going up. And when times are bad, both the ones are going down. And there's the bottom line. Here we have GDP. It's C plus I plus G plus X minus M. And these are the four categories we talked about. You add them together, that would be a negative number, and it comes out to $21.429 billion, or about $21.5 trillion. And that's going back to 1980. And again, when recessions hit, the GDP takes a little dive there, a big dive right there. And in fact, the second quarter for GDP, it went down an astonishing over 10%. And that's right there, represents a 10% drop in total production, which is the largest drop ever for a 3-month period. Okay, so that is the end of the part 2 lecture for lecture 2, and then we'll move into lecture 3.